Hello, friends. I hope that you've been well. Thank you so much to Ohuhu for sponsoring today's video and sending me over some new goodies to try out. If you have been with my channel for a while, you'll know that I love working with Ohuhu. Their markers are super affordable and they perform great. This first set here is the skin tone marker set, which I'm surprised I have never tried before. And I love that they always come with a swatch sheet. They also come with this plastic sheet that you're supposed to put underneath your sketchbook page when you're working so that it doesn't bleed onto the next. And then they also sent me this Honolulu 48 color set as well. And this is a really interesting color selection. I like that it didn't come with a black. I know that might be controversial, but I don't use black quite as often, and I have black in other types of markers, and they come with a little booklet to give you an idea of their other options of markers, frequently asked questions, some tips, and other helpful information that you might need. And yeah, for today's video, we're going to be doing like a casual sketchbook session, but it's going to be talking about art styles. And before we get into that though, I want to show off the nibs here. So we've got a brush tip and we've got a chisel tip. That's my preferred selection of markers, just because I find the brush nib to be more flexible and just like more versatile to use. And I know some people don't like the swatching process. They find it's tedious, but I personally love it. I find it really therapeutic to do. And also it's a great way to just get a sense of what colors you actually have, because the colors on the lids are often quite different from what the colors are actually going to look like on paper. And the color of the marker will also vary from paper to paper as well. So definitely keep that in mind if you are using different types of sketchbook pages. And I also was sent their fine liners. I absolutely love using colored fine liners, and it's great to have different sizes of fine liners in black as well. Great selection here. I like that the colors, none of the colors are too light. I find it kind of redundant when the fine liners are really pastel for my purposes anyway. And so on to today's actual video topic, which is about art styles. This is obviously a very heavily talked about topic, and something that often comes up is how to have a consistent art style. And personally, I think it's actually more versatile and interesting to explore multiple art styles rather than pigeonholing yourself to one. And so in today's video, I'm going to put that to practice, and I'm actually going to try an art style that is a little bit outside of my own comfort zone. And since it's October, I decided to pick some iconic spooky season characters and create outfits inspired by them from my own closet and do an outfit of the day type illustration. I got this idea from you guys during my last live stream when I asked what you'd like to see in a video, and many of you suggested something Halloween themed and fashion related, so this seemed like the perfect combo. And so to kick off this little illustration series, first we've got Buffy Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this show took place in the 90s, and so of course the fashion definitely reflects that. She loved a high under the knee boot moment, which I am obsessed with right now. And the kind of inspiration photos that I've pulled here, definitely kind of darker color palettes, maroons, blacks, and this particular outfit in the leather jacket with the leopard print is my favorite, but I didn't have anything quite like the leopard dress. So I also pulled this photo where she's got a dragon motif on her tank top, and again, of course, the tall boots as well. And so for my inspo, I pulled out this sheer top that I have that has dragons on it, of course the tall boots, the leather jacket, and a cargo A-line skirt, which is a little bit different from what we saw Buffy in, but I feel like the whole look definitely feels very 90s. And I did put my hair in like a half kind of pony thing as well, which I feel like is a common hairstyle that we saw Buffy in as well. And so for this illustration series, I took the video footage of me in these outfits, and then I basically just kind of scrubbed through them and took screenshots of stills to use as reference for the actual illustration. And so for the actual art style that I was approaching for these drawings is I've explored the chibi art style a little bit before recently. And with those, I was having like Betty Boop in mind. I was also taking inspiration, of course, of chibi art styles that I've seen in anime and manga. And another really big inspiration that I took from was the Skull Panda like collectible toys, like the blind box toys. They have, in kind of the common denominator with a lot of these kind of inspirations that I'm pulling from is that the heads are quite large and the bodies are small and just exaggerated but simplified at the same time. And I'm going to admit that this first illustration that I'm working on here, I really disliked how it turned out. And I think part of it was maybe I was feeling a little bit rusty from not having drawn in a little while, as well as I'm still very new to this art style that I'm trying to approach, this like chibi art style. And as well as I was filming the sketching process, and for whatever reason, filming the sketching process always makes me really anxious, and it gives me like performance anxiety. And so looking back at it, I think the major thing was that I made the head too small. And when I'm looking back at like another outfit of the day drawing that I've done recently, I noticed that that was, I think, the main thing that was kind of off about this version was that the proportion of the head just wasn't quite right. But rather than dwelling on this, we're moving on to our next character, which of course is Wednesday Addams. And I pulled inspiration mainly from the new Netflix series of Wednesday Addams. Don't get me wrong, I love the Christina Ricci Wednesday Addams as well, but the new Netflix one has more outfits to choose from, and she has some really amazing costume design in this series. I am absolutely obsessed. I want her entire wardrobe. Lots of kind of like long silhouettes and really interesting kind of boxy shapes. Of course, lots of black, but I do love that they utilize bits of white and different patterns and different textures and finishes for materials. I absolutely love these, but I decided to go with this one because I felt like it was just very unique. I thought I never would have thought to pair a cropped blazer jacket thing with like an oversized sweater. Just the layering of this I find really interesting, and I absolutely love a chunky shoe, and it just feels very on trend right now with like this super baggy, oversized look. And so I actually was able to recreate it very similarly, not exact of course, but pretty similar. And the only thing I guess for mine is I don't have the cropped pant. Mine are like basically to the floor. But yeah, it's just a really interesting silhouette that I absolutely never would have thought for myself. And I find that playing around with more quote unquote masculine silhouettes or more masculine clothing items to be really fun thing about fashion. And like I was mentioning with the previous illustration, I felt like the head was proportionally too small. And so when I worked on this second one, I amended that and made the head a little bit bigger in comparison to the rest of the body here. And yeah, like I said, this is not an art style that I typically work in. So it's kind of takes a moment to kind of rewire your brain to kind of break the rules, so to speak, in terms of proportions of what you're typically used to. But I definitely think that this works better in my opinion because of how kind of chunky I make the shoes and the legs. So I find that having the bigger head helps balance it out. And instead of just using black for all the kind of clothing items, I decided to use purple as the base just to give it some more interest in the color palette and to help differentiate it from my hair. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with the oversized kind of shoes and the exaggeration of it, and just really focusing on simplifying the shapes, because I think that when you are exploring a more simple art style. You're really wanting to focus in on the shapes and the silhouette as opposed to worrying about all the little details. And so that was what I was trying to focus on when working on this. And yeah, I originally really wanted to incorporate the colored fine liners in this, but in the end I actually ended up using mostly black just because the color palette of this is quite dark and I really wanted the line art to create some more contrast for this illustration, again because it's a little simpler, so you want it to have a bit more like legibility in a more graphic way, if that makes sense. And another thing that I think really helped me execute this second version of the outfit drawing as opposed to the first one was getting into the mindset that I really didn't need to replicate the reference photo exactly how I saw it. And I know that seems obvious, but I've always had this kind of weird relationship with drawing myself because it's like you're so hyper aware of it being you. So when you're drawing it, it's harder to kind of break away from taking like artistic liberties with things. Like I don't have gray eyes. Proportionally, my lips are not this big. My waist is not this small. All these little details when, especially this might be TMI, but like I've never been super confident. And so you end up sort of projecting that when you're trying to draw yourself, which is why like I don't do a lot of like self-portraits or anything like that, because you just want to make like a beautiful illustration, but when you don't see yourself in that way, it's like, well, I don't want to make an ugly illustration. So you just have to like kind of separate yourself from that weird relationship that you have with your self-image. And so I've been trying to now like approach these illustrations as if this is a new character almost. Like it's not necessarily me, but I'm using the reference photo of myself just as like a launching point. And so when I kind of let go of that mentality of, oh, it has to be realistically representative of what I actually look like, I was able to just approach this in a much more aesthetic way and just make decisions based off of what would look best for the given illustration. And yeah, I think that really helped. I also didn't film the sketching process. I think that also helped kind of alleviate any anxiety that I had, like the performance anxiety of filming the sketching process. I just find it really distracting. And it's also like I sketch so lightly that you can't even see it anyway. So moving on to our last one here. We have The Craft, which is a amazing 90s witch movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. So there is so many good fashion moments in this. I am obsessed. I am a millennial, so of course I love all the 90s fashion. And instead of taking inspiration from one specific character like I have for the previous two, I decided to just sort of get a sense of the fashion in this movie overall and kind of take inspiration from all of the girls in a way, because as much as I love Nancy, she typically wears pretty much all black and white, and we already did that with Wednesday. So I decided to use this photo reference here and take a little inspiration from all of the girls in this photo. So I took inspo from the floral dress, as well as the mesh long sleeve shirt, as well as the oversized jacket, and then threw it all together in one outfit. So the only thing is I forgot the sunglasses, which I think would have been the perfect cherry on top looking back at that photo. But in any case, I think I nailed the look in terms of just capturing a little bit of an essence of all of the witches from The Craft. So yeah, it's just kind of like an amalgamation of all the characters kind of thrown together. Basically, I feel like I could be a fifth member of their coven, basically, or, like an extra in the movie. And yeah, so the color of the dress was sort of in between two of the colors that I had. And so I just layered them on top of each other to get it closer to the hue that I needed. And that's the beauty of alcohol markers, is that they are transparent. So you can layer them to create new colors. Even though I have so many Ohuhu markers, I probably could have found one, but I really wanted to try and stick to the new sets that had been sent to me from Ohuhu. So that is something to keep in mind if you are interested in getting alcohol markers, but you don't want to, break the bank and buy like humongous sets of them, is that you can definitely create new colors by just layering them on top of each other. And as you would have seen, I also use color pencils on top as well, which not only gives it a little bit of texture and a little bit of grit, which I really enjoy, but it also allows you to manipulate the colors and get more variation. And yeah, to kind of circle back to the topic of having multiple art styles, I think that not only does it for you as an artist make it more interesting and kind of gives you new life into exploring new things and experimenting, but I think it also makes you like a more employable artist as well. Because for example, if you're someone who works with clients or you want to do client work, sometimes your kind of main art style might not lend itself to specific projects. But if you're showing in your portfolio that you are capable of doing multiple different styles, it might lend itself to a particular project that you want to work for. And also, even if you're someone like me who doesn't necessarily work for clients, but has kind of a multitude of products that you want to make, I think that this kind of simpler art style lends itself really well to more kind of merch type products like sticker sheets or keychains or things like that. And so, yeah, I really do think it is very beneficial to have more than one art style. Not that there's anything wrong with having one art style either, but I just think that I feel like especially with young artists or new artists, there's this concept that if you have an inconsistent art style, that's a bad thing. And I really don't think it is. And the other thing that I find is really beneficial as well as with exploring or experimenting is that you'll probably learn something new and you can utilize that skill in your usual art style. So for example, like I was mentioning when I was working on these, that I was trying to focus on the silhouette and simplifying the shapes. And I think that is something that I can definitely utilize with my typical illustrations, because I think when I notice really good shape language in other people's work, it creates just a much more satisfying thing to look at. And silhouette and shapes is not something that I often think about when I work on my typical like fully rendered illustrations. So that's something that, yeah, I'm going to take away from this, these experiments that I did for these illustrations. And as well, I think that this art style, like I said, will lend itself well to sticker sheets or something. And not necessarily of myself, even though some people have mentioned that they would be interested in a sticker sheet of these little outfit drawings, which is very flattering. I'm not sure if I'll actually follow through with it, but if I were to do fan art characters in this style or something of that nature, I think that it would look really, really cute. And yeah, I think, as artists, it's more interesting and more fulfilling to always be growing and learning and trying new things. And I've alluded to this quite a lot in my Patreon podcast, but basically I'm really struggling, honestly, in terms of my relationship to my art and my career. I just feel like I've lost the spark that I used to have about art creation. I think probably a lot of it has to do with having art as my full-time job now. When you make art your full-time job, it's now about making income as opposed to the joy of art creation. And I need to find ways to make it fun and fulfilling again, as opposed to just thinking about, is this going to perform well on social media, or, that kind of like thought process. And so I think that in experimenting with these kind of simpler styles, I'm hoping to find that spark again and just try and take the pressure off of this like art career that I've manifested for myself. And don't get me wrong, I'm so incredibly grateful to be in the position that I'm at. I know that I'm very, very lucky and I should be very fortunate, but I do think that I just want to be transparent about the feelings that I've been having. And this has been kind of an ongoing thing, probably all year, essentially, of just being really dissatisfied with my work and where I'm at. But I want you to know that I'm just going to keep pushing through. And I hope that if any of you are having similar feelings or thoughts, that it's perfectly normal to feel this way, and you're not the only one who's kind of dealing with self-doubt and imposter syndrome and all of those things. And I think that for me, in terms of trying to push through this kind of down feeling, is leaning into other things that make me happy or piques my interest. And fashion and styling and putting outfits together has been that for me right now. I've been really enjoying putting these outfits together, and I am finding this like new creative outlet in fashion and in clothes. And honestly, doing this and doing quote unquote self-portraits of myself, it feels like a form of self-care and self-love to a degree. So here's a couple of bonus ones I put together but didn't draw. Love the iconic prom dance outfit from Wednesday. And then this is actually going to be my Halloween costume this year, which is of course Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice. Super Halloween vibes. I love this movie and I'm really excited to wear this out. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little different than my usual stuff, but yeah, I'm just trying to find the inspiration and the drive in any way that I can. So we're gonna keep leaning into our micro interests here. And yeah, I hope you have an amazing day or evening. Happy Halloween, everyone. Stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.